All right, I got the man, the myth, the legend, my former coworker. I should say my former boss. I mean, if we're talking totem poles, coach. Okay, but this is Eric Donoval, guys. He's the co-director at Wyoming for their football program as well. And man, we'll dive in and talk a lot about that. But excited to have you, coach. Appreciate you taking some time today.
Appreciate being on, man. It's always great talking to you.
Absolutely. So I mean, obviously we go back to LSU where our paths cross, and I don't even know if I told my guys that. Um, But I just kind of think about you and your career and how much time you have to spend under Moffitt. And I regard Moffitt as the best in the country. I think he's just the short time I got to watch him, I learned so much from that guy. But, anyways, you've been around a lot of great ones. And one thing that I'm always envious of, or at least I want to kind of get to know more of, just because the way my path worked out, I didn't get a lot of time to learn in that facet. So, just take a little bit. Tell us kind of how you progressed to where you are today, how being around all the people you have been has shaped your philosophy, what you've taken away, and just kind of walk us through all that.
Yeah, so I started at LSU, and that's a big place to start. I was really fortunate that Coach Tommy Moffitt took a chance on me, coming out of a D3 school up in Wisconsin, and I was blessed to get an internship at LSU with Coach Moffitt back in 2010, and my roommate actually Ryan Philo, and you're good friends with him too. Ryan Philo was already down there, and so I'm a year and a half younger than him, and he was down at LSU, and he's talking about how great this strength coach is, how great this program is, and again, I played at a D3 school, so any chance I could get to come to the SEC, that was a huge opportunity for me. So I'm really, really lucky that Coach Moffitt took a chance on me. Interned in the summer of 2010. At the time, Paul Jackson, who's the director at Ole Miss, he was the top assistant there. And right after that summer, he took the head job at Miami of Ohio, opening up a spot for Ryan to take that assistant job. And I was really, really lucky that Coach Moffitt gave me a graduate assistantship there. So I spent 2 years as a GA, and got hired on full time, and I was a full time assistant with Coach Moffitt for 5 years. And you hit it right on the head, man. He's the gold standard. He's an incredible man. He's an incredible coach, and I pretty much owe my whole career to him. My philosophy is obviously derived from what Coach Moffitt does down at LSU. He's an Olympic based, ground based program. That's what we do here at Wyoming. He keeps it very, very simple, but within that simplicity, he's just so good at coaching the details. Coach Moffitt came up and learned under Gail Hatch, who was the 2004 USA Olympic weightlifting coach. So the fine-tuned details that Coach Moffitt taught us day in and day out with the Olympic lifts, and then just beyond the lifting, the attention to detail and being proactive in your programming and your day-to-day operations was first class. He taught me a lot about staff oversight. Kind of just seeing how he organizes his staff, how he has preemptive strikes on the staff and on the players. He had just such a great pulse on the team. There were days where it would be a Tuesday in summer, and he would just come in and he'd be like, "Man, you know what? I just feel like the guys, they're going to be a little bit lackadaisical today. Let's jump on them." And he had just such a great pulse on the team, and just by default, being around him for so long, you just pick up on those things. Um, his big thing was coaching is teaching, and teaching is motivating athletes to learn, and that we're in the service industry. And everything he did was always for the athletes. It was an athletes first program, whether it was programming, whether it was how you talk to the players, having one-on-one conversations with the players. I know numerous times I'd see players in his office discussing things, and whether he needed to rip someone or whether he needed to pick someone up, he was just really, really good at that. So my philosophy is based off of Coach Moffitt. My career is owed to Coach Moffitt, and being around him, you just see how many details go into having a staff and overseeing 105, 110 athletes in those day-to-day operations. So he's the gold standard, man. You hit it right on the head.
Yeah. What I guess what always interests me too is, I mean, obviously I know you've always had really big aspirations to run your own show or be in the position you are right now. So as you're sitting there for those 5 years and you're watching this coach, this legend, this guy who's doing all these things, what did you do to prepare yourself for this moment? So I mean, like, were you a guy that, as far as, so I know what kind of program I want to run, you talk about managing people, watching Moffitt manage people. Were you a pen and notepad guy, like writing down, hey, this is how I want my program to be based off this when I go run mine, but what did you do over those 5 years so that when Wyoming called and that opportunity was here, it wasn't a, oh shit, let me get all my stuff together. It was a, hey, I'm ready. I've been mentally preparing for this for 5 years. Here's what I got. Let's go to
Right.
work.
Yeah, Coach Moffitt always used to say, be the strength coach that you want to be today. And he expected us to act like head strength coaches from day one that we got there. And we really took that to heart. Now, if you can ever get the opportunity, any coach really, if you can ever get the opportunity to work under a Tommy Moffitt or a Mick Marotti or a Joey Batson, some established legends in the field, man, you do it and you stay as long as you can and you learn as much as you can. I watched every single thing he did. I have binders of notes because every single day there was just something that he would that was noteworthy. Every single day, and you remember it, man. Like whether it was talking to a group, whether it was calling a group up before the workout, whether it was stopping the workout because the standard wasn't being hit, and him getting into the group, no matter what it was, there was always something that he did every single day that was noteworthy. And I have binders of notes from him. And another thing he did, he challenged us. He would bring ideas to us and ask us to research them. He would put books on my desk, things for me to read. So he was really pushing the staff development and the self-betterment and education of all of us. And so by watching him and seeing how many books he's read, how many podcasts he's listened to, how many things he's done, that by default made me want to learn a lot more. So I delved into strength and conditioning and self-development a lot more just by watching him. And that's kind of how you build your philosophy. You know, not everything we do here is exactly how it was done at LSU, but the foundation and the small details of how Coach Moffitt, you know, demanded it be done, that hasn't changed. So he pushed us to get better. And, you know, just by watching him and him allowing us to have ownership in the program, you know, we would run warm-ups. I programmed a lot of the running. And those are all things that he allowed me to do that prepared us to take this next step and run our own program.
Yeah, for sure. And that kind of segues nicely into my next question about that. And I don't really, I don't know. I don't know that I could have came from a better scenario than you and Ben being at LSU together and
Right.
seeing how Moffitt operated and how inclusive he was. And I mean, I can even remember my third day at LSU. I'm out there spraying down racks,
Yeah.
and he comes out and takes the towel out of my hand
Right.
and says, "You spray, I'll wipe." And I'm
Right.
just like, I'm like, what? No, like I was like, no, like I was like, am I doing something wrong? Like I was
Right.
so
Right.
caught off guard. But that's who he was every day.
Yes.
Um, and so he really, even in the 4 weeks or shit, the 8 weeks I was there, he ingrained so much of, there is no ego in this. We're all in it together. So I can only imagine how much that's played in your and Ben's heads being there as long as you guys were.
Mm-hmm.
Um, but even regardless of that, being a co-director and everybody having their own feelings about how things can go, that's tough to do, and
Mm-hmm.
you guys have done it with great success. And not many people in the country can do that. Most people in the country can't even read a book and be open-minded to what it's saying, let alone have
Right.
another person with your similar title and you trying to decide what's best for your program. So what
Mm-hmm.
advice do you have for people in any of those scenarios? Someone who is a co-director, someone who just needs to become more open-minded, how can people put their ego aside and have the success that you guys have had there?
Yeah. So, you know, it started with, you got to surround yourself with the right people. You know, there are going to be coaches that you disagree with. There's going to be coaches that have philosophies that don't necessarily align with what you believe. I think we gave this thing a shot based on us working together for so long and realizing that our philosophies and our values do align. So there's not going to be much differentiation there. But when you look at ego, man, like ego is a problem when it gets in the way of, or it takes priority over what's best for the athlete. So a low dose of ego, I just call that confidence.
Yeah, for sure.
You know, and everybody's got to have a little bit of an ego to be successful, because you can't be a passive, submissive field. That's just, you're going to get eaten alive out here. So it's not that you totally disregard ego, but it goes back to kind of what I was talking about before, of each of us having ownership over certain situations and certain aspects of the program, and then collaborating on others. So we get feedback from each other in certain aspects, but at the same time, we do have ownership over things, because everybody does want ownership of stuff. I mean, that's a natural human want to have ownership and autonomy over stuff, and we both have that in certain aspects, but we also collaborate. You know, like I said, I do the running, he'll collaborate with the big skill running. He does the lifting, I'll collaborate with the skill lifting. And we found that, again, man, two heads are better than one. And it, you know, co-directors, it's just a title. That's really what it needs to be with a healthy staff. You know, everybody's got to have some type of input. I'm not saying that assistants need to be telling the head strength coach what to do, but a head strength coach that values the opinion of his staff is going to have a more bought-in staff, and you're going to have greater success for the athletes. And when it comes down to it, that's what it's about. It's about the athletes. It's not about what I want. It's not about what Ben wants. It's about getting the best idea and the best program out on the table, no matter who it comes from, and implementing that with our athletes. And, you know, it goes back to practicing what we preach too. And I talked about our players putting their personal agendas aside and doing it for the guy next to them. Well, our athletes are going to follow the leader before they follows the message. And so us as coaches, we need to put our personal ego and personal agendas aside and make sure that we get the best product out there for these athletes. Again, we're in the service industry, and they need to come first. You know, and like you said, man, people can't get out of their own way. They read stuff and they don't want to break their beliefs. And, you know, we've always done it this way is a bad mindset to have in this field, especially with all the information that we have access to these days. You know, an example for me, you know, I never did max velocity work with big skill. I just didn't believe in it. I've never done it. And I'm seeing all this great information from Tony Holler and all these people to feed the cats. And I'm seeing how much of a benefit max velocity work can have on a skill guy with their nervous system, and the translation into the weight room to get them stronger. And that's me putting my ego aside and being open. And all that's kind of just interrelated, but that's kind of how we make it work here. Again, it all comes back to the athletes and what's best for them.
Yeah, no, I mean, I think having an open mind it's a tough thing for a lot of people. And I think the one thing that's impressive about you guys too, and just as hard as I think this is one thing I talk to my guys about, is like some people are loyal to a fault in this industry, in the sense of when they do work with somebody for 7 years, they just run the program when they leave just because that's how it's been done. And that's
right.
They feel like they're disloyal if they change the back squat to a front squat, or if they do max velocity sprinting with bigs when their previous boss didn't do that.
Right.
And it's like,
Right.
I try to explain to these guys all the time, like, I want your ideas.
Yes.
I get more pissed when I don't get ideas. When we go through the annual plan, and it's like, even if it's just a devil's advocate, hey coach, what if we did this instead? All right, well let's talk about it. Why are we doing this? But thinking for yourself and understanding that you're not disloyal because you're bringing up another idea, like that has nothing to do with it. And I think that's a whole nother piece of it too, which is also impressive. So why don't you dive into some of that stuff for us then? Just going through kind of your annual plan, your progression with sprinting, maybe some things that you've discovered recently that you've been trying that you really like, and kind of maybe how, if you were to walk me through 2020 when the guys get back in January, February, where they'll start on the field with you, where your mind starts, and then work us all the way into, you know, camp preparation, getting them ready to go and get the hell beat out of them for 4 weeks.
Yeah, that's about right, huh? That's every program. Yeah. So, again, you know, year 1 to year 2 is very different. The biggest thing we did, I would say we started it in summer, was when we could really do it, was really split the program between skill and big skill. Totally different demands on the field, totally different demands on the body, totally different skill sets. The biggest thing was really dividing the team into two groups, and we took, the DBs, the wide receivers, quarterbacks, running backs, select linebackers, select fullbacks, and select tight ends, and we put them in the sprint group, or the kind of like the skill group. And then you had your O-line, D-line, select fullbacks. You had select D ends, younger guys that needed to get in that second group, where we had more of a weight room emphasis as opposed to a sprint emphasis. So first and foremost, that was a really big thing for us, that we had a lot of success with this summer. So moving into what we're going to do this spring, year 3 again is very different from year 2. So a lot of the stuff that we did in summer, we can now shift towards spring. So in general, we run a 4-day split. We work out 5 days, we lift 4 days. Monday is a high force, basically your power emphasis day. Tuesday is a strength day. Wednesday is a low day. That's our tempo run as a team in spring. Thursday is our high velocity day, and Friday is another strength day. So the big thing is aligning and consolidating training traits on the field and in the weight room. So Monday, given that it's a high force day in the weight room, we're acceleration on the field. Yeah. And when you start in spring, we almost do kind of like a reset block. We're going to reteach 2-point stance, 3-point stance. We're going to reteach position and posture, acceleration, just to touch on those things because we haven't done it in over a year. And so that's a big acceleration day where the nervous system activation is high, but not too high like a max velocity day. And the distances are a little bit shorter. Tuesday, that'll be our sled day. So that's going to be it's going to build off of Monday. So that's going to be all slow sled work. So it's going to be position and posture work. And a lot of things we divide up is the neural demand and the structural demand. So, there's going to be more of a neural demand on Monday. There's going to be more of a structural demand on Tuesday. Movements are going to be slow, but we're really going to push position and posture with sled marches, sled bounding, that kind of stuff. The big guys will push sleds without an acceleration emphasis. They're just going to push sleds. Heavy, light, different distances. And then Wednesday's that low tempo day, and that kind of divides the week up, allows us to build that aerobic base. It gives them a low day before Thursdays. And Thursday's our change of direction day. So again, on that reset block, when we start in January, we're going to reteach center of mass. We're going to teach about basic support. We're going to teach about side plants. And I know you know about side plants from LSU. We're going to reteach all those things. And it's going to be really closed drills, short distances, deceleration work, and change of direction work. And in the weight room, it's going to be high velocity. So everything's going to be from the hang. It's going to be very light. Everything's going to be about moving that bar really, really fast. And then Friday, that's going to be a conditioning day, and then another strength day. So we try to give 72 hours between our high nervous system days, and we try to give 72 hours between our high structural days. So Monday to Thursday, and then Tuesday to Friday. So that's kind of the basic format of what we do in spring. And then from a progression standpoint, we're just simple to complex with all of our exercises, with all of our field work. It starts with 2-point stance, 3-point stance, and we'll work out to sled pulls. We'll work out to stick acceleration runs, all that kind of stuff after that position and posture is re-emphasized. And same with the weight room. We're going to start with motor patterning, make sure these guys are squatting well, and then move from there, simple to complex.
Walk me through a little bit of so, I mean, I've kind of gone back and forth on same thing as you is the on-field stuff for bigs. And, point in my career where everyone's training the same, and then it was a little bit different. Mm-hmm. And then when I probably 3 years ago, I started getting a lot of max velocity stuff with our big skill. Mm-hmm. And I immediately noticed a huge improvement in really what I was most impressed with, just general athleticism. Right. I just noticed that by them sprinting, these big boys were able to pick up their knees. They had much better core function, patterning, and then the weight room became. I saw holistic responses to so many things just from sprinting. Which no shit, like we know that now. Right. And so I'm big into that, but now I'm kind of at the point where I backtrack and say, okay, we definitely need to, there's got to be a point here where we are starting to back off these guys in some form of sprinting. They don't need to be sprinting the same as a 185-pound guy,
Right.
but what adaptations do you make on both spectrums there? So um, where I am with it now is, instead of being position specific, we train deficient specific. So we'll all RSI all of our guys. Now, typically, where does a big fall on the RSI? He's going to
Right.
be reactive strength deficit. So he's going to typically be in the program that you're probably about to talk about here in a second. And 99% of the time, the other guys are in some form of muscular strength deficit.
Right. Right.
And then we kind of program and pluck and play with that. But what is that? So you split the skill, you split the bigs.
Mm-hmm.
What does that look like? What on field? What is the actual difference? Is it yardage? Is it repetitions? Is it movements? What is
Mm-hmm.
it difference in the weight room? Is it percentages? Is it volume? Is it movements? What is it?
Right. Yeah. So you know what? It's brand new to me too. So this is going to be the first spring that we're going to try to attempt it. And I think, you talk about the reactive strength index and big guys, being velocity deficient and skill guys being a little bit more strength deficient, for the most part. Um, I don't want to, I don't want to sprint these big guys where it takes away from the strength work, which is most important. So, I think it's just touching on it. With these big guys, it's going to be form first. These big boys don't know how to run upright. And a
Right.
lot of times when you can fix upright running posture naturally, they'll get faster. And the biggest thing that intrigues me about sprinting these big guys and maybe extending, we didn't sprint them past 20 yards all summer.
Yeah.
Everything's really acceleration based, even pushing to 30 where your big guys are going to be at top speed at 25, no question.
Probably.
Probably at 20. But the nervous system demands of that sprinting, I just feel like, and again, just seeing all the information out there, it's just going to have a positive benefit on the weight room, which is ultimately the most important part for the big guys is the weight room. With the skill guys, their distances are longer, their drills are more complex, their plyometrics are way more complex. While the skill guys are doing alternate leg bounding or standing triple jumps, obviously the big guys aren't doing that. Maybe they hit singles or doubles at broad jumps. Maybe they're just doing a vert broad series. Maybe they're just doing a med ball toss. So the plyometrics there's an extreme difference in the big skill and the skill, and then the yardage and the distance and the overall amount of sprinting that the skill guys are going to do is going to be more than the big skill. In the weight room, the repetitions and the intensity tend to differ a little bit. Big guys are going to lift a little bit heavier with a little bit higher volume. Skill guys are going to hang in that 70 to 80% range, and we'll touch above 85 once in a while. But again, when you look at top speed running, strength isn't really a huge part of that. And that's where, we'll get most of our strength in spring, and the program will really change once we get to summer. And the summer is a completely different program from spring. So let me touch on that actually. So you can kind of get an idea of how that transitions. Cause I know you're talking about, what we do from an annual standpoint. Once we get into summer, we stay in those two split groups. Skill guys run 5 days a week. They lift 3 days a week. Big skill runs 5 days a week, lifts 4 days a week. So we take a day out of the weight room in summer for the skill guys. We add an extra sprint day. So in summer, again, high intensity running and change of direction and conditioning are going to be a premium for the skill guys. Monday's still our acceleration day. And this is where we go a split day. So we'll run in the morning, we'll lift in the afternoon because we want to accumulate more high intensity yardage. So if we can get some recovery time in between, we found that our lifts are a lot better and a lot more high quality. So we'll run in the mornings, we'll lift in the afternoons. So Monday will be an acceleration day, a high force day in the weight room. Tuesday will be the skill guys tempo day. So we kind of do a true high-low split early in the week. Wednesdays are our true max velocity day. The yardage will increase, the volume will increase, the complexity of the drills and the plyometrics will increase. And then Thursday and Friday, we go back-to-back conditioning days. And Thursdays are almost like a fourth quarter program. We do a 6-station type of circuit. We try to hit different cuts, 0, 45, 90, 135. outside leg, inside leg, curvilinear running. We do a bunch of different drills to try to hit every aspect of change of direction. We have one drill with a reaction component, and everything's on a cadence. Everything's reloaded. If it's not done right, it's your traditional fourth quarter program type of atmosphere. And then Friday we come back and we do team conditioning in the morning, and then it's a strength day in the afternoon for the skill guys. So we back-to-back condition those guys. GPS has been huge for us. We know exactly what these guys are going to do the first week of camp. We know exactly how much high intensity running. We look at zone 4 and zone 5 yardage, which zone 4 is 12 to 16 miles per hour. We know exactly how much they need to accumulate for a week of camp. Zone 5 is above 16 miles per hour. We know exactly how much our skill guys run, and we try to progress our summer so we hit those numbers by the end of summer. And this year, those Thursday and Friday runs were within about 3% of what our first practice was during camp. So those guys are physically prepared for that.
What is your goal? What is your target? What are you trying to, what is your end game there? What are you trying to build up to with zone 4 and zone 5?
Well, we just want to accumulate that high intensity running that they're going to be doing in 1 week of practice. So, and I have the numbers right here. So we looked at camp last year. The average skill position ran 1,870 yards of zone 4 and ran 588 yards of zone 5.
That's per day. That's per day, or
that's for the whole first week of camp. So that was 6 practices.
So you look at it on a weekly basis.
Exactly. Yes, exactly. Because again, the way we divide our week, we try to consolidate training traits, and we try to hit different emphases each day. So that Monday, it's an acceleration day.
Yeah.
Zone 4 is primary. Zone 5 is secondary. We're going to get out of zone 4 that day. We'll touch on zone 5 if they extend past 20, 25 yards. Tuesday with those tempo runs, that's an easy, safe way to accumulate zone 4 yardage. We get 1,000 yards of zone 4. And whether you're short sprinting 15 yards or whether you're jogging 100, the miles per hour are the same. The body doesn't know the difference. So we can accumulate a lot of zone 4 yardage there. And then Wednesday, that's zone 5 primary, and zone 4 is secondary. That's where we'll get a lot of our top speed work. And then Thursdays and Fridays, it won't be a whole lot of zone 4, not a whole lot of zone 5, but the mechanical load will be really high. And the anaerobic conditioning and all the physiological load that we want to try to hit, we'll get that towards the end of the week after our good quality days are done. And the way it worked out, we were about at 100% for zone 4 and zone 5 by the end of summer. So these guys were acclimated to what the demands are going to be in camp, and knock on wood, we had no hamstrings this year. We've had minimal soft tissue. And so being able to quantify exactly what these guys are doing during camp, and then progressing them through the summer to hit those numbers to make sure that they're acclimated and they're ready for that first week of camp has been big. And that's why we did those back-to-back conditioning days at the end of the week too.
No, I love the concept of looking at it as a week, and it takes me back to, we were talking to Brett Huth at Incarnate Word last week, and I was kind of asking some similar questions, but he's like, where strength coaches miss the boat is they look at what that day 1 of camp is like, and they try to prepare their team for that day.
Right.
He's like, the problem with that equation is you're not just preparing for that day. You got to prepare them for 4 of those days in a row. Because It's not just doing that once and they're done. No, they're doing it Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday. And so
everybody get through day 1.
Right.
Everybody gets through day 2. And so, day 4, day 5, when you start putting the pads on, day 6, that's where you start to see a lot of those soft tissue injuries, those overuse injuries. And I think that's what's worked best about our summer program is we've increased their speed ceiling by putting really high quality work at the beginning of the week, so that speed reserve gets pushed. And then all the conditioning we need is done after that, so it doesn't interfere with those training adaptations. And then putting those conditioning sessions back to back, not only do you get the mechanical and physiological load that you need to accumulate for camp, but it teaches them to go hard twice in a row.
Yeah, no, I really like that. I think that's really good. We just started using GPSs. back in spring. So we're still in the collecting normative data
Yeah,
phase.
yeah,
Like
and honestly, all this information we're just starting to finally find trends and get really good information year two. We've had it through the season last year, we have it this year, and we have it from spring ball last year. And so now that we can accumulate that data, now it's where we can finally fine tune our training to accommodate that.
yeah, no, that's awesome stuff. So in the weight room with the big skills versus your speed skills, are you
Mhm.
doing anything? Are you guys like working on the force velocity curve at all as far as different speeds, move
Mhm.
bar speeds? You guys get hooking tendo units up? Do you guys do anything with that as far as weight room stuff goes?
Yeah, unfortunately we don't have any velocity equipment in here. That's next on the purchase list. Hopefully
Nice.
we get that for next year. Um, but in general, like I said, the big skill are going to lift heavier,
Right.
and the volume is going to be significantly higher. And they're going to stay with that 4-day split through the summer, where Mondays are a high force day, your power cleans, your split jerks, your clean pulls. Tuesday is going to be a big strength day, so it's going to be an upper body emphasis and lower body auxiliary, big strength day. Thursday, that's our high velocity day, where it's block cleans, hang snatch, post chain, um, all within 60 to 65%. So we do have a velocity emphasis. And then Friday is going to be a lower body emphasis, upper body auxiliary, still a big strength day. With the skill guys, the intensities are a little bit lower. We do some French contrast training. We do some complexes on Wednesday. So Monday is a high force day. We're still going to power clean, split jerk, clean pull. Wednesdays, that's kind of our high velocity day, because again, we want to consolidate training traits. So it's max velocity on the field. It's going to be max velocity in the weight room. So it's very similar to a Thursday workout with the big skill, where it's hang snatch, block cleans. We'll do some types of complexes, some quarter squats, some range specific for those guys with some PAP, that kind of thing. And then Friday is going to be our standard strength day, where we're back squatting, bench pressing. We just have a little bit less of a strength emphasis for those speed skill guys, as opposed to those big guys. So, they're going to hit strength once a week, where those big skill are going to hit strength twice a week.
What are your? I mean, I know for me, my entire career, I've always thought this, but summertime, to me, summertime is the most challenging for a lot of reasons, but mainly because you have so many stimuluses that you
Right.
need to draw from, and they gotta be conditioned. They gotta have some aerobic capacity. They gotta be powerful. They gotta be strong. So you're working some alactic power. You're working some
Right.
alactic capacity, um, and you're trying to stretch them in so many different directions.
Mm-hmm.
To me, especially on the field, which is where your expertise is,
Mm-hmm.
that's where it's a very fine line of, hey, that was enough to get the response we want, versus one more rep sometimes can be that tweaked hamstring
No
that
question.
we're all beating our heads on the desk for.
Right.
Um, I guess what are your thoughts in general on that? What should coaches be doing um, to prevent that, to kind of have that balance of enough to stimulate a response, but not too much to push them into that overtraining type situation? Where are you at with all that?
Yeah. So that there's certain parameters that we go off of for our plyometrics and for our sprint work. Um, those parameters will be dictated by the intensity of the drill. Um, the big skill, their plyometrics are very simple, as opposed to the complexity of a skill position, and the volume significantly lower. Um, for acceleration work, we usually won't push past 250 yards. For max velocity work, we're not too much above that. The most we've done is about 280. A lot of literature says that 300 is at kind of that sweet spot. We kind of go below that. We're not training track athletes. We're not training world-class athletes. And so the demands that a sprint takes on these athletes is significantly higher. And I think we all can agree that less is more when it comes to plyometrics and speed work. We try to time these guys as much as possible. We try to do a lot of flying tens with these skill positions. And once a guy PRs, you're done for the day.
No.
And Coach Moffitt taught me and you that a long time ago. You don't try to double PR in one day. If a guy isn't feeling right, we pull back on him. It's got to be close communication with these athletes. We're constantly asking these athletes, how do you feel? It's close communication with the training room to make sure we don't have any issues going on before we sprint. once those dudes hit a good time and they PR, they're done for the day. And we'll live to fight another day, but once they PR, that's it. You know, I think the big thing with keeping these guys fresh and not pulling from too many directions was having that morning afternoon split. The quality in the weight room went up. You know, we always run first, so the quality on the field will always be there because that's the first thing we do. What we didn't want to see, especially with the big skill, was the weight room work take a hit because of emphasizing the running. And so by doing that split day where we run at 6 or 7, we don't lift till 2 or 3 o'clock. Those guys can get 2 meals in them. They can get rehydrated. They can get refocused. They can take a nap if they need to. And so our weight room work was significantly better because of that. So then it comes back to what the emphasis of the position is. You know, big skill are going to sprint. They're going to do conditioning. Their volume's going to be a little bit less because that weight room is just so important for them. The skill positions, we're going to do more on the field. And if the weight room takes a slight hit from that, then that's okay, just based on the demands that they're asked to do on the field. But I think having really good parameters and an understanding of the yardage and volume that, you know, elicit a response for speed training, and that fine line between undertraining and overtraining, understanding that is really, really important for these guys.
Yeah, I mean, everybody wants such a definitive answer on that. You know, like how long should their rest time be? Well, how many reps of sprints are you doing? I mean, I don't even program reps anymore. I just program
Right.
ranges. Like,
Yep.
if this
Yep.
guy feels great, we'll top. You know, he'll hit 4 reps top.
Right.
If he looks like shit, he'll hit 1 and he'll be done for the day. Like
Right.
that's just coaching eye. Or
Right.
you know, like when we're squatting, like that, I don't have like a hey, this guy's not allowed to start his next set until he's done 3 minutes and 47 seconds of rest.
Right.
Look at the athlete. If he's sitting there
Right.
staring at you, smiling on his face, he's not dripping sweat.
Let's
Go,
roll. Yeah.
roll.
You know, you're never gonna find, especially with speed work, and this could even be true with strength work in the weight room too. You're never gonna find a specific day where every single person is at their peak performance, and that's just being in the eye of the storm, and understanding your athletes, and that goes back to communication with them and understanding them, understanding their tendencies, their body language, what their 80% is, what 80% looks like, and a program is fluid, man. I had this great, you know, I thought it was great, this great running plan, and we didn't do any of it exactly how it was written.
Yeah.
None of it. There were days where we cut the plyo. There were days where some guys ran 3 flying 10s, some guys ran 1. Program is fluid, and being in the eye of the storm and understanding your athletes, and just being again, it goes back to ego, man. Like, I got this written, but like, this isn't going to work today, and I was wrong. I guessed wrong. I programmed wrong. We need to change things because this isn't working today. And that's huge, man. That's huge.
Yeah, and it's always surreal for me. Like, I mean, everybody programs a different style. I like to program a year at a time, and
Yeah.
I'm the same way as you. I mean, I would say I probably change 70% of the things that I
Yeah.
originally program, and we constantly meet about what we need to adapt and change and do those things. But, anyways, we're you know, 2 weeks ago we're sitting there on the whiteboard, and there's like the entire annual plan for our max velocity sprint work.
Mm-hmm.
We're gonna do fly in whatevers. We're going to do those 18 total times in the entire year of 2020.
Yep.
So you think about, like, that's an entire year of training. They're going to sprint max velocity 18 times with us.
Yeah.
We can't afford to waste that either direction, right? Like, so if a guy's having a great day and his body feels good, we need to take advantage of that.
No.
Vice versa. If a guy's in the shits one day, we can't afford to push him and hurt him and then have him miss 8 of those 18
exactly
opportunities. So they're so valuable, and I think you got to have a plan for auto regulation, whether that be your coaching eye, or you know, we try to have a foolproof plan where we have cutoff points for guys with their sprint times. If they drop below this time based off their speed, you're done. Like, you're out of here. I don't care if you feel good. Your body's telling me something else.
Right. Yeah. No question. That's dead on, man. You can't afford to miss a training day. And if you err on the side of caution with these guys with speed work, 99% of the time, you're going to be just fine. When you
Yeah.
err on the side of lower parameters, err on the side of caution, you'll be just fine with the speed work.
It's what you said. I mean, literally, less is more. And I think everybody in their career learns it at some point. I know for me, when I learned it, I was terrified. I mean, I remember the entire summer of training when I was finally like, okay, this just makes sense. Let's just go with it. Let's try it. Let's cut
Yeah.
out this volume here. And we were doing at a maximum 12 total sprints a day in
Right.
some fashion: sled sprint, sled march, prowler push, max velocity sprint. But however those were divvied up, there was no more than 12 total reps
Mm-hmm.
in a workout.
Yeah.
I remember half of the summer I was like, man, I think they're getting faster, but and by the end of the summer, it was the best results we'd ever had.
Right.
You know?
Right.
And
And
it's
that's
like,
hard to do. It's hard to, as a coach where you want to push your guys and maximize them. It's hard to watch them stand around for 5 minutes.
oh my gosh,
Do
yeah.
nothing. And that's just, you have to do that. And it's just trust in the science behind it. And the results speak for themselves. Just like you said, you've had the best speed results that you've had yet by doing that philosophy. And we look at our speeds, and we're significantly faster as a team. And then within that speed increase, not only are you more resilient towards injury, you have less soft tissue injury. We monitor their heart rates. And so on those Thursdays and Fridays, man, their heart rates are dropping fast. And it's twofold. It's them getting in shape from actually doing the conditioning. And it's just also easier for them because their speed reserve is so much higher. And you can't do that tired. You just can't.
No doubt.
I'm gonna hop in with a question here real quick for you, Coach.
Yeah.
When you're talking about auto-regulating sprints, and then you're also talking about wanting to hit, certain levels of high velocity yardage in that zone 4 and zone 5, like how do you manage those two things? Because they're kind of separate, right? Like you want to hit a certain amount of yardage per week, but you're also auto-regulating guys. So if a guy's not feeling great weeks 6, 7, 8 of summer, and you're cutting his reps, and then he doesn't go hit those yardages that you want to that match week 1 at camp, how do you manage that?
Rule number 1: do no harm.
Yeah.
And so I rather take the risk of not doing as much and then pull a guy's hamstring because I'm trying to be a stickler and hit these numbers. Again, like I said, everything's fluid. If we can get to 90% of those high intensity running zones, we're going to be fine for that first week of camp.
Yeah.
But I think the big thing is just smart progressions with these guys too. No, we didn't need to hit 100% of that high intensity running week 1. We hit about 60% of it only. And so we take our volume on the field and we look at what the GPS data tells us and how much zone 4 and zone 5 yardage that we're hitting with these sprints. And then we can kind of play with the volume. And it's kind of like a sliding board, okay, well, we hit 60% of a volume on the sprints that we wanted to hit. We hit about 70% of our zone 4 and zone 5 yardage. We could probably keep that sprint volume right where it needs to be next week because we don't really need to push it any more than that. I think just smart progressions and doing no harm. Rule number 1, don't take the risk of, man, I need to hit, 80 yards of zone 5. I have to hit that today. You don't have to hit it. It's just not doing any harm to these athletes. The last thing I want is them to pull a hamstring trying to just hit a number. In terms of the auto regulation, a lot of that goes, to the timing gates. Like I said, just because a guy's having a slow day doesn't mean that we're going to necessarily cut him. But once they PR, then they are done. So that's kind of our philosophy on it. Every Wednesday, every athlete isn't going to feel his best. That doesn't mean that he's not able to sprint. So once they PR, they're done. Or if they're just not feeling right, if something's not feeling right, then they're done too.
Yeah, I mean, I guess my question is kind of so you have an athlete. Let's say you're starting safety. You're back half of summer in July.
Mm-hmm.
So happens he's not feeling great on these days, or on the other end of it, he's PRing all 4 Wednesdays in a row.
Mm-hmm.
And you head into camp, and it's like, wow, this guy hasn't hit these numbers that we wanted to because we did err on the side of caution. Like, are you gonna try to limit that guy in practice and build him up through that, or is it just
we'll continue to, at that point it's kind of out of our hands. Coaches. Now we do monitor these guys closely during practice. More so with mechanical and physiological load. So we have a close communication with the coaches. We try to give them information and not tell them what to do, but tell them what they're doing. And that's the best kind of way that we've built a relationship with the coaching staff is not tell them what to do, but tell them exactly what they're doing to the guys or for the guys. We'll monitor them, and a lot of it comes back to total load. So if a guy is well above his high intensity running yardage, or if a guy is well above his average 18 period practice or average 21 period practice, that's all information we give the coaches. So we can kind of monitor these guys so we don't overtrain them. And that's kind of how we do it here. So we'll say, we have our starting safety, like you're talking about. We're having an 18 period practice. He averages about 400 yards of high intensity running. He averages about a 350 total player load. If he's significantly above that, we'll inform the coaches about it. If he's significantly below it, we'll inform the coaches about it. And he's got more that he can do during practice. It's just a communication with the coaches in terms of that.
I think a lot of that in general, it's a lot of it's player by player. I don't know that you necessarily plan for. You just you deal with it case by case when those races come up.
Exactly. And when it comes to the sprint volume versus the zone 4 and zone 5 yardage, I don't ever want to get out of my parameters of sprint yardage, like true yardage. Like let's say we're doing 260 total yards of sprint work. I don't want to really ever get out of that parameter just to push zone 4 or zone 5. Usually the way we've done it, usually we're pretty close when we program a specific yardage for the actual sprint work. We're usually pretty close to the required work that we need for zone 4 and zone 5 based on the distance that we're running. That's the big thing. We want to emphasize zone 4. We keep the distances under 20 yards. If we want to emphasize zone 5, we keep the distances at 30 to 40. And so that's really how we can fine tune what zone of high intensity running that we're trying to emphasize that day, if that makes sense.
Volume that same way too.
What's that?
You manage the total volume of yardage the same way too, right?
Exactly. So let's say we have 60 yards of sprint work programmed. I don't really want to push above that just to try to accumulate some GPS number yardage, necessary. Yeah. Again, everything's just a tool. The risk reward isn't necessarily there. And just, again, going back to, I'll sound like a broken record with this, is do no harm, man. Do no harm.
No doubt.
Coach Rinaldi, you got anything?
Yeah. So, Coach, you touched on it a little bit using, I guess my first question would be looking at zone 4, zone 5. So you said that was just an absolute reference point, right? That 12 to 60 miles an hour and 60 miles an hour up. Do you guys look at anything relative to the individual? So let's say, for example, my top end speed is, 21 miles an hour. His top end speed is like 17 miles. Okay, maybe a little bit faster than that. But you guys look at, like, hey, what is 80%? 80% for me might not be the same for him. Do you track anything relative like that?
Well, we try to keep it pretty broad. And my philosophy with GPS is like nutrition, man. I try to look at the macros. You know what I mean? We have 45 units out. To say I'd be able to individualize every single guy based on their miles per hour. It's pretty hard to do. I know exactly what you're saying. If we could do that, that'd be incredible, because obviously a guy that runs 21 is going to have a ton more zone 5 yardage as opposed to a guy that runs 17. That probably isn't going to even really have much zone 5 yardage at all. The main positions that we look at are wide receivers and DBs with that high intensity running, because they're doing the most sprint work, obviously.
Yeah.
Now with the big scale, we look at more physiological load and mechanical load. So you're looking at high intensity accelerations and high intensity decelerations and their physiological load based on their heart rate. So with a skill position, we're assuming pretty much everyone can run over 20 miles per hour. So we can have a more broad approach to that. You know what I'm saying? So we have averages for our skill. We have averages for the skill position. So that looks at wide receivers and DBs. And we try to take that broad approach to the sprint training, because anybody that can run 17 miles per hour only, I'm not really even worried about their high intensity running, because they're probably not doing much of it. You know what I mean?
Yeah, for sure. Mm-hmm.
I get exactly what you're saying. That'd be incredible if we could fine tune it that much. I'm not that smart. Matt's probably smart enough to do that. I'm definitely not.
It's one too many Four Locos.
Yeah.
Coach.
Yeah, so you mentioned, knock on wood, that you really didn't have many hamstring issues with all the sprinting you guys were doing. Now, I know you were controlling volume with what you did with the skill guys 5 days a week, but do you think there was something you did in the weight room to complement that to help prevent your injuries?
Absolutely. We have a pretty extensive, and I'll just talk about hamstrings because that's the main soft tissue injury that you see with sprint work. We have a pretty extensive post-chain progression from bilateral to unilateral, from hip dominant to knee dominant, metric. We categorize our post-chain as kind of a force producing post chain, and then a synergistic post chain. So a force producing post chain would be like a heavy hip extension. A synergy emphasis for the hamstring will be like a physio ball hip extension, where you're engaging that glute and the hamstring at the same time. We try to push the different ranges of motion of the hamstring. We try to put it at 90 degrees. We try to put it at 120. We try to put it fully extended. We do a lot of isometrics with our hamstrings. You know, when you look at how the hamstring actually operates during running, there's not much concentric. There's actually not a whole lot of eccentric. It's a lot of isometric, and the soft passive tissue is what actually moves the hamstring. So we do a lot of isometrics. We try to hit the hamstrings from a ton of different angles, bilateral, unilateral. And so that definitely has a part in the hamstring prehab. But again, it all comes back to there's nothing in the weight room that can touch the velocity of sprinting. So you can strengthen your hamstring in the weight room, but you still need to apply it correctly on the field and put those guys into positions where they're making those hamstrings more resilient in the actual velocity ranges that are going to be done on the field, and where you're going to get the most issues with pulls on the hamstring.
Appreciate it.
Satisfied, Andy, with that answer?
Yes.
It's good. Thank God. Well, hey, man, I've said this a few times, but I really appreciate the transparency. I think that's probably one thing that we both naturally picked up from Moffitt, but there's not enough coaches out there that are just willing to share, like they got some secret recipe that's going to win a bunch of championships. You know, I think this is just the message I hope this sends to people, that, hey, it's okay to be an open book. It's okay to share what you're doing. It's probably one of there's two things that I really want to change this industry before I leave. One is more transparency, and two, I want strength coaches to feel like they can actually go like vacation, and they're not like bad strength coaches if they take a day off. Those are like two things that I want to.
Nothing either of us have done has never been done before, man. The strength and conditioning is just a big theft industry. You know, we ain't the first people to sprint fast and do plyos and hit the hamstring from different positions, and we won't be the last. So there ain't no secrets in this field. So.
Yeah, no, I completely agree. But tons of good stuff, Coach, and I know it's always crazy. You got a little girl now you're taking care of and everything. So I know time is of the essence. So I really appreciate you taking an hour to spend with us, man. It means the world to me.
Absolutely, man. I really appreciate you having me on, guys. Great to meet all your staff. I know you're doing a great job up there, and I'm excited to see where you take Buffalo, man. It's always great to talk to you, my friend.
Appreciate you, boss. We'll talk soon.
All right, man.